So for our audience at home right now who's not very familiar with what you had to deal with, can you just kind of walk our audience through what happened to you when you were trying to break stories that show that Eric Holder wasn't being honest with Congress? And that's just kind of putting it nicely. And you were exposing the government for literally giving guns to people who shouldn't have had them in the first place?
Yeah, that was the Fast and Furious operation, but the Obama administration apparently also was very upset at my investigative and award winning reporting, likewise on Benghazi, on green energy scandals, and so on. But I was tipped off by two people inside the intelligence agencies who I didn't know very well, and I don't think they knew each other, at some point that I was probably being monitored because of my work. And I didn't know what that meant. We'd never heard of this. It didn't occur to me that I was being watched by my computers. I said, "What do you mean being monitored?" And they said, "Your computer's surveilled." And both said things like, the American public would be shocked at the extent to which the Obama administration is using these tools against citizens and journalists. So I had noticed all kinds of electronic interruptions and strange happenings. I never attributed that to the government until this started to come up. And then I had a source step in and offer to get a forensics exam, and neither of us thought anything would be found in my CBS computer, but lo and behold, there was the forensic evidence. We continued on with CBS forensic experts who confirmed this. I hired my own for the lawsuit who found even more evidence and found the government IP addresses that were used to spy on me. There was a keystroke program monitoring my keystrokes. They were in my Fast and Furious documents. They've been in there for months. There was all kinds of bad stuff going on, and they were in the whole CBS system, by the way. The lack of outrage, though, among my colleagues, when CBS announced this internally, I thought, oh, everybody's going to freak out that their sources may have been looked at. Nobody said a word about it. It was just the weirdest feeling, almost like you're the pariah because it happened to you, even though I had no choice in that matter. So I did file a suit. This has gone on for over 10 years. The average person can't really win. I've come to find out it doesn't matter. You have the forensic proof. If the government fights it and you spend hundreds of thousands of dollars of your private money trying to hold them accountable, but if they fight it, it'll go on forever. And most recently, the court literally said one of the ex-agents implicated, who is a Secret Service agent who served time in prison for other corruption, but was part of this operation. The judge said, we're going to dismiss charges against, or the case against him because he said he didn't do it. I'm thinking, how can this be? But we did win a victory, a clerk's default against one ex-agent who was giving some evidence. And sadly, as soon as we won this clerk's default against him, he disappeared. He's supposedly dead now. So he can't tell us who the higher ups were. He can't confirm this information at trial, which is what we've really been hoping for. But at least it's a small victory that we're on the record with the government spying on me and having this court victory where we will have a damages trial, I hope, pretty soon.
Yeah, and I think it's really important because that is very interesting, the fact that this person is deceased now. Did the government have to provide you guys with any evidence that this individual was deceased, or are they just able to say that in court and get away with it?
They didn't even say it in court. We learned it by happenstance. He's just been a non-appearance for the whole lawsuit after a certain point. And then someone showed me an obituary, and we can't find out how he died. He wasn't old. We really can't find much information. Now, I will tell you, I think there's every possibility that he's in a witness protection program so that he can't squeal on the higher ups. And the reason I think that, I had provided evidence to the court to confirm that his allegations that he had actually admitted to along the way were likely true, because these court documents I found confirmed he had a relationship with this team, he said, who did the spying out of the U.S. Attorney's Office in Baltimore under Rod Rosenstein. I found a court document that said, it was signed by Rod Rosenstein, that this man had helped serve as an agent in a case and needed to be in a witness protection type thing in a separate incident that he was involved in. So there definitely was a relationship and proof of what he was saying and what he says he did and what he implicated others in. And then he disappears. And now we're just sort of stuck with what looks like a victory on paper, but it means we can't go for the higher ups, which was the whole point of the lawsuit.
Yeah, and that's really alarming that suddenly happened. And again, it's not really a surprise, though. I mean, we've seen our federal government do this often, where they're, when you're closing this often, where they're, when you're closing who are going to help get you uh, disappear. And that's what we're seeing here. Now, I also want to ask you, Sharyl, because although they hacked or they allegedly hacked into your devices, um, did they try to go after your family members? Because that's usually a big issue here where loved ones, close ones, I hear from whistleblowers all the time that they actually target their spouses and those who
Well,
are
I think
close
you're
to
right
them
to
as
say
well.
allegedly, but I will point out from a journalistic standpoint, in my opinion, we don't have to say they allegedly hacked because the announcement of the hacking was made by CBS News, all the forensics experts, and the evidence of the IP addresses by the government and the fact that they couldn't have gotten in my computer any other way, that's irrefutable. So the government hacked into my computer. We just are being left to try to, without the ability to prove it, prove who gave the orders. The court wants you, before it goes to trial, to say, here's the guy who did it. And I have, through sources, some inkling, but that's not evidence. And so these cases can't go higher up after the people that may have given the orders, because I, as an ordinary citizen, can't get the proof in advance of discovery, which they won't let me have discovery unless I have the proof. It's this sort of vicious loop. But what was your question when I went off onto the tangent about the alleged?
No, it's okay. So usually when I talk to whistleblowers, they'll tell me all the time that when they
Oh,
come
yeah.
forward, usually their loved ones are targeted by the government.
Well,
Has anyone close to
we
you been
knew from the
targeted
forensics that
throughout all of
my
this?
husband's devices and my daughter's devices, she was in high school at the time, were compromised because the same thing had happened to those devices. And I only knew from this one guy who I said disappeared. He, before he disappeared, said that they had been told to plant, they were in the process of planting pornography on my husband's computer, knowing we had a daughter at home, which never actually happened. But the thought that they were planning that, and there have been court cases where the FBI has allegedly done this improperly to people. And how do you ever get over that? I mean, the thing that chilled me about it is my husband's former law enforcement. Maybe most people wouldn't believe that, but there'd always be a little cloud of suspicion among some who go, oh, really? Like maybe. So that's very damaging thing that they can do to you. And that's the only thing, the only allegation that I had no proof of, but from this ex-agent that said they were intending to do.
Yeah, sure. When I heard that, I did ask my friends who are experts working within the federal government if that's even possible. And they're like, yeah, yeah, you can do that. It's very easy to do. And the fact that people potentially could be set up by the federal government in that sense, because it's such an egregious accusation for someone to face, I don't think you ever overcome that because once you get accused of something like that, most people are just
So
horrified to even
I
entertain
read
the
about
idea that
why
this
that's
might be
such a
a setup.
powerful tool
And
that
so
is
I'm glad,
improperly used
yeah,
by bad actors in the government. And as you were alluding to, they say it separates the support the person had for any kind fighting any kind of battle. If the government wants to get them to plead guilty to some charge, you throw in like a porn charge or a child porn charge, and the support that people might have had to get financial support and moral support to challenge it, that's gone because people start to separate themselves from you because they're not sure. And it's an incredibly devastating and effective tool.
yeah, yeah. And it's the reason why I still have to remind myself that those who are accused of something are innocent until proven guilty, because it's just insane. But you're right. It's very effective when you do it from that front. And they want to silence you. That was the goal in all of this. The goal was to go after and to take away your credibility as a journalist. And, the fact that they thought to go to that level is pretty egregious in itself. But Sharyl, you are on the better side of all of this. You have now launched another great book that you just released yesterday. Now, interesting enough, I did see that it was kind of temporarily taken off of Target's website, but after reaching out for comment, they've now brought it back onto the website, which is very exciting to hear. But your book tackles what not many really still to this day want to talk about, and that's the problem that we have with big pharma and what big pharma did during the pandemic. And interesting enough, just yesterday, the FDA again pushing another COVID vaccine onto the American people with very little data available. So, give us some insight on your book and how it's going to, for our viewers at home, kind of unearth a lot of these theories about big
Well, thank
pharma
you for
and the
making
real
the
the greed
inquiry about
involved
the
in all of
book.
this.
and Target pulling it down yesterday, which was very odd because maybe that shook things loose along with some of the pressure on X or Twitter over this. But I appreciate that because it's back up apparently. But what I tried to do was round out the discussion. People already know that Big Pharma influences the media through the ads that it buys and this corrupt relationship that can occur. And Big Pharma influences government through the same thing, payments to political parties, both Democrats and Republicans, so that they don't hold certain oversight hearings, so they pass certain policies and laws. But I think what's been left out until now of really the serious discussion is how those three things also collude with the establishment medicine, meaning your doctors, medical journals where doctors get their information from, medical schools where burgeoning doctors are taught about how to treat their patients, continuing medical education classes after they become doctors. All of these environments have been corrupted by the same financial interests in ways that are often invisible to us. But this explains, I posit, and I think I've given great evidence, why we've never spent more money on healthcare and pills and doctors and medicine, but we're growing sicker and sicker as a society, even as our doctors and federal health agencies pretend not to notice what's been going on for 20 years under their noses with these chronic diseases and illnesses, or else they're either pretending not to notice or they don't notice. And I don't know which is worse, but there's a reason for that. And I think that's explained in Follow the Science.
Yeah, and I think it's really important for folks at home to go take a look at that book because we all need to understand about the big pharma angle to all of this because we constantly see it all the time. I recently called out Fox News and they were pushing propaganda that literally came from Bill Gates and the WEF, and so many other of these propaganda machines who are trying to push this plant-based food onto Americans when we know plant-based food isn't healthy for people at home. And so again, they want to make Americans sicker. That's kind of the feeling that we get these days. And unfortunately, so many people aren't calling it out. And instead of thinking before they publish an article, which we are supposed to do as journalists, they just run whatever study and don't look behind to see what it's actually funded by. And, there's a very few group of brave doctors who come forward and say, hey, this is what we believe in. We are pushing back on the pharmaceutical company narrative on all of this. And a lot of the times those doctors end up targeted too. So it's really important for people to understand really what's behind the machine as well. So I highly recommend our audience go take a look at that book. The link is in the description of this video. So you guys can click on that and that will take you to where you could purchase it. Sharyl, I want to thank you for your time and thank you for fighting for journalism. Okay, if you haven't done so yet, I don't really know what you're waiting on. There's a great sale going on right now over at mypillow.com. You gotta head over there before this sale ends. It's Mike Lindell's $25 extravaganza. He has bed sheets, pillows, towels, dog beds, dog blankets. So many of your favorite items, including slippers and sandals, are on sale right now. Now, if you want to lock in those prices, of course, you got to use promo code BRE. That's promo code BRE to do just that. Again, folks, head over to mypillow.com. We don't know how long this sale is going to last. Use promo code BRE to save the most money, of course. That's promo code BRE.